Ever since I first picked up Dead by Daylight, I always thought of possible killers that could be implemented into the game's roster. One of the more unorthodox of which being Wes Craven's The Djinn from the 1997 film Wishmaster.
Rotten insect. Run and tell those you will what you will. Tell them there is something loose in their city.
The Wishmaster is a relatively obscure franchise, with most people who have heard of it being those who were old enough to see the movie in the theaters or younger fans of horror who have bothered to go back and experience these older films for themselves. Now, in terms of lore, the Djinn would easily be the most powerful killer in the game. The Djinn can grant an unlimited amount of wishes, purposely warping these wishes into horrific and gruesome scenarios that in some way end up backfiring on whoever wished it. In exchange for a wish, the Djinn takes the grantor's soul, with his end goal being to grant 3 wishes to the person who freed him, allowing his fellow Djinn to cross over and claim the earth. And while an unlimited amount of wishes sounds kinda overpowered, you have to keep in mind that in spite of his seemingly infinite capabilities, the Djinn is incapable of doing anything through his powers without a human asking him for something.
Hey pal, it's time for you to go. Get out of my way. I don't think so. I want you to leave.
No. No. I have to get inside.
Well, now you'd have to go through me. And that is something I would love to see.
Now, this got me thinking. The entity allows the killers in Dead by Daylight to roam the fog and kill survivors as long as the killer hangs them on a sacrificial hook so that the entity could claim the souls. But the Djinn also claim souls in exchange for wishes. So here's what I think could be done in order to have things make sense within the lore. It'd be something like, the entity has allowed the Djinn to leave his place of confinement and enter the fog to impose his malicious ways upon the survivors. In exchange, the Djinn has agreed to allow the entity to claim the souls of those he kills. This way, the Djinn could be able to hit survivors and use whatever powers he might have without needing to ask anyone to do anything. As for his killer weapon, the Djinn has claws, which would be a great option. Now, the tougher part in my opinion is his power. Obviously his power should involve something with wishes, but a random dialogue box appearing mid-game sounds kinda awful.
Why does this need to happen so often? Like every 5 minutes? Why does it take so long? Nobody feels like sitting through this every time. How would you like it if you were playing a game and then every 5 minutes I came over and paused it, then counted 10 tedious seconds and then let you continue play the game?
So here's the concept I came up with. When playing against the Djinn, there could be wishing fountains placed across the map, much like the pig's jigsaw boxes or the plague's pools of devotion. At these fountains, survivors will have to wait around like 5 seconds before given the option to grant their wish. Survivors could be given things like rare add-ons to their items, such as a brand new part or a styptic agent. Or something a little more experimental that I was thinking about could be like a 5th perk chosen at random. But more importantly, for each wish granted, the Djinn would gain a tier, giving him some sort of buff each time a player makes a wish. Now, an issue I quickly see with this would be if the buffs the Djinn gains each time a wish is granted are too powerful, survivors might just opt to not make a wish in order to deny the Djinn his tiers. So as a way to circumvent this, I was thinking that after a certain amount of time, the Djinn would gain his tiers whether survivors claimed their benefits or not. This way, survivors would be more inclined to use their wishes and gain some sort of value out of knowing that if they don't, the Djinn will end up benefiting regardless. I think this would open the door for different playstyles as well. The killer might just try and defend his wishing fountains, denying the survivors their wishes while ensuring the Djinn receives his tiers. Or they might just allow the survivors to use their wishes knowing that they will gain their tiers faster. At the start of the game, one survivor at random would be chosen as the Wishmaker, with a limited amount of time to make their wish. There could be something like 3 minutes for the survivor to make their wish, with a minute grace period afterwards before another survivor is chosen to make their wish. But by the end of the game, each survivor should have had the chance to make at least one wish. Well, assuming they haven't been killed before then. In the film, the Djinn is seen in 2 different forms, his human form of Nathaniel and his true face. The Djinn has the ability to shapeshift into humans whose faces he's able to get his claws on. As an additional part of his power in the game, I was thinking the Djinn would be able to switch between his 2 forms. When in his human form, the Djinn lowers his terror radius to 0, making it easier to catch survivors off guard. Now, I'm not even sure if it'd be possible for the devs to program this, but I think it'd be a cool feature for the killer to be able to shapeshift into the survivors he's landed a hit on. It might only work once depending on how smart the survivors you're facing are, and this whole idea falls apart real quick when thinking about going against a survive with friend group. Another power the Djinn possesses in the films is the ability to teleport. I figured this could work something like the new Freddy teleportation mechanic, except instead of teleporting to the generators, the Djinn would teleport to his wishing fountains. This however should have like a moderate cooldown as to not be too overpowered, with some add-ons potentially lowering the cooldown duration. Now, these are all just some ideas I've come up with. In reality, I'm not even sure if it's possible for the devs to implement some of these abilities, but regardless, those are the powers I think the Wishmaster could use within Dead by Daylight. Now, interestingly enough, the film was distributed by Artisan Entertainment, formerly known as Live Entertainment, which in 2003 was purchased by none other than Lionsgate Films. And as you may know, Lionsgate already has multiple licensing agreements in place with Behavior Interactive. Plus, they would have to pay Andrew Devoe for his likeness as the Djinn, which I can't imagine is something he'd be against, as he's shown interest in returning as the Djinn for another film. So why not a video game featuring one of his most iconic characters?
Careful what you wish for.
Now for his 3 unique perks, I haven't put much thought into it just because I think I'm really bad at coming up with ideas for things like this in Dead by Daylight. A lot of things I feel are either too overpowered or too underpowered. But regardless, I was able to come up with 2 perk ideas, and here's the first one. As the chase is prolonged, survivors begin to progressively be affected by impaired vision. When I say impaired vision, I'm thinking something like what happens when the clown hits you with his gas tonic. And in the film, when the Djinn is chasing the main character Alexandra, something like this sort of also happens where the camera pans around a little bit and gives you a bit of a perspective of what she's going through in her mind. And for perk 2, I have your supernatural bond to the obsession allows you to cause great despair. Each time a survivor is hooked, the obsession will let out a scream, giving away their location. So I got this idea from the film because whenever the Djinn would grant a wish and take a soul from a human, the main character Alexandra would start freaking out and screaming. And that's pretty much what I had. I couldn't really think of a third one. I'm sure if I had more time, I could probably come up with something, but those are just the 2 ideas I had that hopefully are balanced enough. I really want it to be something that could potentially be in the game. And that's why I'm like stressing that it should be something balanced.